you friends, it's Diane, the Creative Inkster. Today is Monday, November 14th, 2022, and I'm here with a clean and simple card, but I'm going to show you how you can dress it up a little bit too, because clean and simple, that just might not be your style. Clean and simple is definitely not my style. I like to have several layers, so I'm probably taking just a little bit of creative license on the term clean and simple. And what does constitute a clean and simple card? Typically, it's maybe a layer, maybe one ink, and a few little things and not a lot of embellishments. But you know, you can make it whatever you want to make it. I don't do a lot of cards with white as my card base. I typically use a colored card base. That's just my preference. But when I do use white, I always use the thick basic white, and that's what I'm going to show you with this card here. So we'll walk through either keeping it clean and simple or going ahead and jazzing it up. Pardon me. So welcome. If you're watching live, please let me know. I'd love to chat with you here as we go through, and if you're watching the replay, do leave me a comment. I do read them all and love to get back to you and know who's checking in from where. Alrighty, this past weekend, although I didn't attend, was the Stampin' Up! On Stage event, which was live in Europe, and then one day for like 3 days, and then it was a one-day event in other parts of the world. And so lots of cool, interesting stuff is coming. Before we get too far in, I was going to tell you that I posted a link to the retirement list from the July to December mini catalog on my page, and that is items that effective December 1st through January 3rd, 4th, I think it would be, those items will be, some items will be discounted. And the items on the retirement list mean that when they're gone, they're gone. So while supplies last. So if there's something on there that you really, really like, whether it's discounted or not, effective December 1st, you're going to want to get it. In fact, if it's not discounted and you really want it, I get it now anyway, because it could just clear out, or people clear it out on the first day. But those discounts, they only apply starting December the 1st. We have a couple of other things going on though. Tomorrow we start the seasonal sale, which is annual catalog products, and there's a list of punches are 10% off, stamp sets except the host sets are 15% off, and dies are 20% off. You'll see that note in my Facebook page, and all the prices will be updated tomorrow. You'll see the discounted prices. So if I can get anything for you, do let me know. Go ahead and shop at my online store. All right, let's get into tonight's project. So as I mentioned, this is not Whisper White, it's a basic white. So I'm going to get my little supplies out here. It's a basic white card base, which is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4, and I'm going to fold that in the middle. People ask me, which way do you fold it? So I scored into the paper on this side, so I will flip it over and I will fold back. And the reason that I do that is it keeps the paper fibers from breaking down further and kind of gives a little bit of a stronger sort of center to the card. So we've got our card base here. We are not going to do anything else to the card base, so we can set that aside for now. And we're going to work on our layer piece. What I had intended was a tone-on-tone, hi Vicki, of white on white, and I intended to only emboss half of the paper, so this left side only. So when it goes on there, it has a little bit of jazz to it. And how did I do that? I didn't want to bring the big Stampin' Cut and Emboss in front of me here. I'll show you some die cutting with the little one, but I had run this through the regular size Timber 3D embossing folder, and I only added it to this far on the paper and slid it through. And in so doing, I took a regular size, hi Brenda, one, and only embossed half the page. So nowhere does it say in the rule book of card making that thou shalt do an entire layer. You can emboss what you like. So I left this part open here because I want to put a greeting on here. So the stamp set I'm using is one from the annual catalog. It's been around for a while and I love it, haven't used it enough, and it's Forever Fern, To a Friend That Makes Me Smile. So that's what I'm going to put in the bottom right. So a couple things that I'm doing here is I'm going to stamp on the area that of course is not raised up with embossing. Let's tuck that aside. Give ourselves a little bit of room. I'm going to use 2 inks, but I'm going to show you a simple way that you can use 1 ink pad and get a very similar clean and simple look. So, To a Friend That Makes Me Smile is going to go in the bottom right. There we go. It's got my embossing over here. If you were doing this and you were doing this yourself, you could always stamp first and then emboss afterwards. Then that gives you an idea of how far over you need to go. That's my layer. Then part of this idea of doing a clean and simple is no die cutting. So this piece of rectangle is 1 7/8 by 3 1/8 roughly. So you could just cut a piece of paper to that size and do it, or I do have some dies and that's what I want to do to kind of jazz this up a little bit. So I'm going to pull in the mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. How cute is this guy? I don't use it nearly enough because the big one is right behind me where I do a lot of my die cutting, and I'm die cutting a lot of stuff. So I tend to use the big one, but the little one is kind of cute and handy. So rather than cutting this just plain paper to put on my layer, I'm going to use a die that is approximately those same measurements. 1 7/8 by 3, I think I said. So when you're using the small one of the tricks I've learned is you want to stagger the 2 plates. So you don't want them flush and trying to go through this way. You want to stagger them a little. And that's, I've got the bottom one forward and then the other one. And I'm just going to put it through. And what that does is it allows it to grip it a little bit better. Sorry, this is going to wiggle the camera a wee bit just because we're all on the same table. But that helps it go through a little bit better. And then I get my nice stitched rectangle. I'll keep that because I could probably put a label out of that. Alrighty. Next up is to do some stamping on this layer, and I'm going to do the lighter color. So I'm going to stamp Pear Pizzazz down, and then it coordinates so lovely with Mossy Meadow, and then I'm going to use the darker Mossy Meadow for the one that's raised up. But let's say you don't have a bunch of ink pads and you just want to do it simply. Let me show you how you can do that. So we have this little technique called Stamp It Off. So let me grab some scratch paper over here. You can see that I do a lot of stamping off and messing about with it. So I'm going to take my darker color of Mossy Meadow, and I'm going to grab this leaf image and inking it up. And rather than stamping it down right away, which is the depth of color I want for the one on top, I'm going to stamp it off once, and then I'm going to stamp it onto my paper. And you see, I get a lighter image. It's even, I guess, variegated is the word, compared to this darker one here. This one's lighter, but if you didn't have another color to work with, this is a really easy way to kind of do that. And you don't even have to stamp off once, you could stamp off twice. But I do have Pear Pizzazz, so I'm going to use the lighter one that I've already stamped as my one that's going to be die cut out. And here we go. We're going to get Pear Pizzazz going. I think I'm done with this ink. So make your inks work for you. Do some of that. Would that apply to the old machine? Do you mean lining up the plates? No, you don't need to worry about that so much with the old plates, the old machine. And that's because the way that these are beveled, I believe, in the ends of them just makes it easier, and I believe it is really just for the small Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. That's the one that I found I have this issue with, and lining it up by staggering them works a little bit better. Okay, so here's my rectangle that I cut out, and I cut it out first, And then I'm going to do the stamping. There we go. And I've got one on here, and I think what I did actually on my sample was I stamped it once, and then I stamped it a second time. I lined up the stems at the bottom a little bit, but I wanted it to be just a little fuller, so it looks a little messy, but once we die cut this other piece out, it's going to look just fine. It's going to hide it, because we're basically using the exact same shape on a small piece, so you don't have a lot of excess. So we'll pull this machine back in, and it does anything that's 3 inches wide. So let me trim off this paper a wee bit, because it's not going to fit through otherwise. Use that again. And I have matching dies for the Forever Fern stamp set, which is where this very pretty image has come from. This one here, this matches. So they're called Forever Flourishing. So we're going to die cut this out just by layering, putting the die right on top, and we want to do that offsetting thing a little bit. That helps it go through. And if you find that your paper tends to shift when you're using it, one tip that I learned recently, and I don't use it a lot, but it certainly is workable, is taking a small bit of washi tape, or better yet, Post-it notes. So even if you get the ones that are 1 by 2, then you don't waste them, but you can go and use them over and over again. They don't cut through because you're just using them to hold this down in place. And so yeah, there's a little tip for you if you find that your stuff shifts as it's going through, because that can happen. You're trying to line it up and it shifts a little bit. Alrighty, so we have now our layer with the embossing and the greeting. We've got our beautiful rectangle where we've double stamped, and then I'm going to add this on here just like that. So it's not as dark as my original one because I used the stamping off one, but I'm good with that. And so you can really mostly hide what's in the background there. So to put this on, I need some Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm going to use the mini ones. Nope, not those. Not those either. Ah, here they are. The mini ones. They're just a little bit smaller, and they fit into smaller sections, so you don't have to cut them. These are, I believe, 750 Stampin' Dimensionals for $5.50, and the regular size ones, there's about 300. So you get a good value for money for these. So I'm not going to try and finesse to get a bit of dimensional on that small stem down here. I'm just going to put it around the other parts. Something's just not worth it, in my opinion. Alright, so here we go. And I'm totally fine with it sticking off a little bit, but I do see I have a dimensional there. So we're going to peel that guy off because we don't need him. Right, now a little bit more, we need to add some ribbon. So if you're going with your clean and simple version, don't worry about the ribbon. If you don't like doing bows, don't do bows. Just do you. Do plain or do nothing. I love this gold twine. I love doing bows with it. It's really pretty stuff. So that's what I'm going to use. And it's not stretchy, but it is, what's the word? Like it wants to curl on its own, so it's got a little bit of a life of its own. Just go back and forth and get it going together there. And then I'm going to grab a glue dot for the center. These mini glue dots we sell in the box, or if you've got a Paper Pumpkin subscription, you usually get them in there as your adhesive. So use those little guys up. They're kind of small and fussy, and if you've already got tape runner or liquid glue like me, that's what you're using from your Paper Pumpkin kits. Alright, so we're going to trim off that excess. And then now we're just about ready to put this down, but I want to work on this little heat embossed area here. Heat embossing is the thing that just really is the wow factor. So I've got a rather large piece of, way bigger than I need, of Mossy Meadow. But to heat emboss, I'm going to use Versamark ink, which is a sticky clear ink. and some white embossing powder. So our embossing powders are now sold in 2 collections. White, clear, and black is one collection. You get one of each of them, and then the metallics, which is gold, silver, and copper, and they're sold in 3 pots in there like that. So let's get the stamp, which is here, and it says hello. And I'm not worrying about the size of this. I'm just going to position this over here in the corner. I'm going to hand cut around it. So the magic with this heat embossing business is to first get your Versamark ink and stamp it down, and then add your powder right away. And I just literally dipped it in. And I'm not worried about the excess that I've got up at the top here, because that's probably gonna show up underneath. It's gonna be tucked underneath my side area there. All right, so once the powder is on there, you're good to leave it for a little bit and do a whole bunch like that, and then get ready to heat emboss. And when I heat emboss with my heat tool, which you can just barely see here, I like to heat it up first so it's good and hot when I get started, and it doesn't just blow the embossing powder around. So give me a sec to do that. I'm going to apologize, but you're going to hear it. It's the crafting thing, right? You're going to hear it as it's heat embossing. People ask, how do I know when it's set? Well, when you put the powder on, it's going to look, you've got your Versamark, you've got your powder, it's going to look dusty or light. When it looks wet, then you know it's heat embossed because it's got that shimmer to it. So now I'm going to grab just my scissors because I'm not too concerned about how straight this area is. I only have a small area to trim. This is going to go on here like this on the side. So I just really need to trim down this edge and maybe the right a little bit. And I can just hand cut that. I could get it in the trimmer. I'm not sure personally that I would be any straighter with it if I did. Again, I'm not worried about the top because I need a little bit of that excess to hold it in place. There you go. Besides, who's looking at this that closely to know that I've goofed it up? Nobody. See, look at that. It's going to look perfect. All right, so I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive here. Liquid glue does the trick, or a tape runner type tape. And it's just going to go on the edge like so. Because I've used liquid glue, I just need to sit here and hold it for a second and let it dry. We're not going to worry about the back because that's going to go on our card. Now I'm going to switch to our regular size dimensionals, and I've got some leftover bits. I say it all the time, don't throw them out. You can always cut these guys up and use them. Did you know that I'm returning to in-person classes? If you've been to my classes before, you know it's been a while. December will be an in-person monthly card class. 8 cards, 2 of 4 designs for $25. If you place a minimum $40 order with me that's tied to that class, well, you can get the class for $10. How great is that? You can do it as a kit to go, but I am encouraging people to come in person. It's going to be fun. So it will be on Tuesday, December 13th. All right, so I've just placed this guy down across my embossing, which ends here. And I've got the ribbon. Let's see, I need a couple of pearls. And I know they're here. Okay, these pearls are carrying over into the new catalog. Yeah, or I shouldn't say into the catalog, but they're carrying over in that they won't be in a publication, but they'll still be available to purchase after this catalog that they've come in ends. I love them. currently on back order. It'll be December before we get more, which is unfortunate, but that's okay, I can wait. All right, so there is my front to my card, and then I'm just going to glue it down. So just to recap on the clean and simple part, to me it's clean and simple because it's basically 2 inks and a white card base. Oops, just a little bit gummy there. And some minimal supplies, so it's, not 3 and 4 layers deep. So to me it's clean and simple, but you can jazz it up as little or as much as you would like and make the card your own. You could even pop this up if you wanted to. But I saw a version of this online as a clean and simple without some of the pieces that I'm showing you here, and thought I will just show you how to do that and teach you a few little things along the way. Thanks for watching. Be sure to let me know if you're interested in the December class. I'll be showing the cards probably next week, and I'm back here on Wednesday with a fun project. I'm looking over my shoulder going, oh yes, this is a technique, and it's going to involve rubbing alcohol, so you got to come back and watch that. 7 o'clock Wednesday night. Have a good evening, folks. Thanks for watching. Bye now.